You want to see something really scary?
You bet.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, this is really, really scary now.
I trust you.
Hello, Internet fans. It's your old pal Rottin Roger DeMarco here from RepulsiveReviews.com. This week, we're going to talk about Joe Giannone's 1981 film, Madman. So here is the plot rundown. Joe and his crew run a camp for kids / preteens. The season is ending, so this is the final night they're going to be at the camp. He tells them the story of Madman Mars, and he warns them not to say his name out loud, because when you say his name out loud, that's when he comes for you. Richie is a smartass little prick, so he starts screaming out Madman Mars' name, and that pisses off Madman Mars, so he comes to kill everybody. That's as complex as it gets, and it's awesome. But before I dive into the behind-the-scenes stuff, just my overall opinion of this film, first, let's take a look at Rottin Roger's Splatter Facts. We have 10 dead bodies. We have 2 titties. We have synchronized hot tub sexing. We have relationship trouble subplotting. And we have my personal favorite, fridge hiding. It's exactly what it sounds like. You're running from the killer, you hide in the fridge. Even if he was a retard, he's gonna see the mustard and the buns and the fruit outside of the fridge. It's not like you're hiding under a bed. The contents of the goddamn fridge are in front of the fridge. You lost at hide and seek. You lost a lot, and that's why you're dead. The methods of death include, but are not limited to, chopping, hanging, decapitation, hacking, and throat slashing. Now, this movie was originally going to be about Cropsey. The Burning was filming at the same exact time, and I don't know whether they got the word that The Burning was doing a loosely based on Cropsey film as well. Joe Giannone and his crew retooled some things and made this movie about a guy named Mars, who's a big, tough, drunk redneck who murders his family. The townspeople hang him, only the next day when they go to check on him, it's just the noose. Loose without a noose. But he goes back to his own house. So you would think that the authorities would be able to be like, he killed some people, and you guys hung him, and he's not there. I mean, they gotta go back to the house to pick up the bodies anyway. They would have maybe found him drinking whiskey and scrambling eggs. And that's also another thing I'd like to point out about this movie. Madman Mars is not dead. He is not undead. He is just a drunk hillbilly. So, gets his superpowers from whiskey. He drinks and then fucks people up. I kinda was wondering if you could distract him with bottles of whiskey like people distract the leprechaun with dirty shoes. Throw them out, throw out a bottle of whiskey and take off, and he's got to, sit there and chug the whole fucker before he comes after you or something. You'd buy yourself some time. You're gone. You're a county over. The electronic score in this movie is extremely memorable. It's very fun and upbeat, and it doesn't compete with, say, like a Friday the 13th style score. It complements the movie very well. I think it's also kind of weird that the movie opens up with a campfire tale, which a lot of these movies did. A lot of stuff in that year. This one isn't like a normal tale. It's like a dude, he's like singing the tale at you. And it's like no matter how creepy the tale is, still just some weirdo with his initials on his belt buckle singing at you. Also, they filmed this movie right when the season was changing into winter. A lot of the leaves were either completely gone or brown, so they had the crew running around with spray paint, making it look a little bit more like summer. But we call bullshit, because if it's summer, you wouldn't be wearing leather jackets and pants. So Madman Mars was played by Paul Ehlers. He was hired to do the artwork for the film. So he comes to the production office to discuss the art. One thing leads to another. He gets cast as Madman. While they were filming the movie, Paul Ehlers' son was born during production. So he actually left production in the middle of a day and went to the hospital to see his newborn son dressed like Madman Mars because he didn't have time to take off all the stuff. That's an amazing story. Galen Ross from Dawn of the Dead plays Betsy. She's sort of the final girl in this film. She has sort of a weird performance. It's sort of tough to get behind. She has those big, deer in a headlight eyes. She seems a little lost. Seems a little half-hearted until you get to, the final act of the film where she finally gets to become the final girl. And then she kind of steps it up and she shows a little bit more range. I mean, even the hot tub sex scene, it's sort of just, very reminiscent of, a Barbara from the original Night of the Living Dead. It's just... I guess I'll do this movie. But it's nice to see her in other genre films. She kind of gives like the least enthusiastic performance in the movie. This also has one of my favorite slasher movie tropes, where they do the old let's split up, sort of the Scooby-Dooism. It's done in this traditional way of a group of people hanging out. You know, they're like, oh, so-and-so's been gone a long time. You should go check on him. So one guy goes, and then the other guys hang out and talk. Gee, it sure has been a while. Someone should go check on Bill. And then another person goes. And it's sort of a systematic way to pump up the numbers. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's very formulaic. This is the slasher formula. We're going to stick to it. Although there are a couple of curveballs they throw at you throughout the production, which I'm not going to spoil. Some of you probably haven't seen a movie that came out in 1981. This is purely a body count film. Fun, popcorn, slasher flick. Half a dozen people get slaughtered, whatever. Just give you a fun Saturday night. And that's what's so amazing about these early 80s slashers. Before it got beaten to death, they had a lot of heart. The lead character, Max, who runs the camp, you can tell that there was a lot of heart in the writing of that character. He seems like a genuinely good person running this camp, taking care of the kids and taking care of the staff. They originally wanted Vincent Price to play that role, and I'm actually kind of glad they didn't, because not that it's not campy, okay, it's a campy movie, but I think the camp would have got ramped had they put Vincent Price in that role. Instead, they cast Frederick Newman. He really has a great time with this role. The dialogue may be a little corny, but he is doing his damnedest to make it seem like he is this person. He does a fucking awesome job. I also really like the other slasher trope that they throw in this movie, where the killer will hide somewhere completely nonsensical, just jump out at the first person that comes. The equivalent of the cat gag. So you have something that's completely off the beaten track. It's a fucking equipment closet. No one has any business going in. And so someone opens the door and dead, which is fucking awesome in the moment until you start to think about it and you go, well, how long was he in there? What was he doing? He consciously was like, I'm gonna hide in here and get ya. Well, it could have been 2 hours, could have been 6 hours, could have been the whole weekend. What if the whole season no one went in there? What if it was like, oh shit, we forgot to padlock that equipment thing because we're leaving tomorrow. Locked his fucking retarded ass in there. It's just super silly to me. Zing! It's gonna make you think. Every time you see it from now on, you're gonna be like, why? What's happening? And I think that this movie, since it was early on in the slasher craze, is above average when it comes to building the tension. The payoffs with the deaths are fantastic. Some we get cut short, they're off screen, which was not uncommon in the early 80s. Leave it up to your imagination, but also give you just enough splatter to make you happy. And I think that this movie really has a fantastic blend of the camp and the actual terror. It's a nice balance. Another thing that seems a little strange in this movie to me is that nobody seems to care that Richie kind of wanders off at the very beginning of the movie. Now, these are camp counselors. Their job all summer has been to look after kids. This Richie takes off. Every counselor is like, hey man, why are you so worried about stuff? It's like they've been just fucking blazing weed all day and they're like, guess we'll go look for him after we eat, after we fuck in the hot tub, after we have a philosophical conversation next to the fireplace where we're warm. Forget that 12-year-old out there who's freezing his fucking balls off when it's getting ready to be October. Maybe they all were just fucking fed up with his shit. They spent 3 months with him and they're like, fuck him, I hope a bear gets him. So personally, I'm gonna give this movie 4 out of 5 blood drops because it's a staple in my library. It's kind of one of those movies I throw on just because it's fucking Tuesday morning. I might watch it 7-8 times a year just because it's so much fun. Because after all, there's a lot of movies out there. Somebody's got to watch them. So why not me, right?